This is the tale of the strange adventures of young Allan Gray, who immersed himself in the study of devil worship and vampires. So reads the opening text to the 1932 German horror film Vampyr. Vampyr was directed by Carl Theodor Dreyer, who also co-wrote the film with Kristen Jewell. The movie opens with a young man, Allan Gray, arriving at an inn to spend the night. During the night, an old man enters his room and leaves a package on a desk with a note reading, "To be open upon my death," and tells Allan Gray, "She must die." The next morning, Allan leaves and is guided to a castle by shadows. Once there, he sees an old woman. Later, the same old man is killed, and Allan opens the package. It's a book, titled The Strange History of Vampires. Now, Allan Gray takes it upon himself to take care of the old man's daughters, Giselle and Leone, from the old woman, who is believed to be a vampire. The movie is said to be based on In a Glass Darkly, which is an anthology of horror stories written by Irish writer Gerardine Le Fanu and published 150 years ago. Most of the stories in the collection are mysteries, but there is one vampire story titled Carmilla, which might possibly be the most famous and influential vampire story in literature next to Dracula. And though there are some similarities in the story, it's not a faithful adaptation, so it's safe to assume that Dreyer was only partly influenced by the stories and just created his own narrative. It's a little difficult to explain the whole movie without describing every scene that happens, because the movie takes a very experimental approach to its storytelling. This was Dreyer's first sound film. However, there's very little dialogue in it. This is because this was a French and German production aimed at English-speaking markets, which meant that while shooting they would have had to record dialogue multiple times in 3 different languages, and they just thought it was too complicated to pull off. So there's very little dialogue in the movie, and a lot of things are mostly communicated through text, which make it feel like a silent film. Now, the silence actually goes very well with the images. They're very strange, very weird, and give a sense of just confusion and dread, like you're living in a nightmare. And the images were also shot slightly out of focus to give it that dreamlike quality. Sometimes they would even put a thin layer of gauze over the lens to achieve that look, and it works. It, again, makes the film feel very much like a silent film, almost like Nosferatu and Haxan, which were released 10 years prior. By the way, Haxan is celebrating its 100th anniversary this September. Now you know, go check it out. That movie's fucking weird. When it was released in Germany, the reaction was very negative. A lot of people hated the movie, complained that it was too confusing, it was boring, and they were very disappointed because Dreyer's last film was The Passion of Joan of Arc, which was a historical epic, and it was regarded as a masterpiece. And now he made this movie, Vampyr, which is a very odd, experimental, silent horror film. It's easy to see why people were so disappointed and just hated the movie. To that I'll just say, hey, I've heard of Vampyr plenty of times over the years. I have never once heard anybody mention The Passion of Joan of Arc. Dreyer was so affected by the backlash that he re-edited the movie for its France premiere later that same year. The French metal band Year of No Light actually made their own score to the movie, and it actually fits very well. It makes the whole movie feel like this epic doom metal music video, and it's worth checking out. Since its initial release, it's had many re-edits Many scenes are now lost, but the version we do have now is in German. It's an hour and 12 minutes, and it is in great condition. So definitely check it out. Vampyr from 1932.